Okay, so we are continuing on Hilchos Deios, chapter 7 on Rechilus and Lashon Hara. So yesterday we did like a massive exploration of what Rechilus is according to the Rambam, and it was very difficult. Okay, so let's because the words are few, let's just reread the words, and then I'm going to do something that is a little taboo in Rambam bekius here, which is we're going to go into non-Rambam sources. And the reason why we're going into that is because we had such difficulty yesterday. I wanted to just see if anyone would spark thinking that would like help us to find our way. And we're going to try not to spend too much more time on Rechilus, but just to tie up loose ends from yesterday. Okay, that's the plan. Okay, so hamaragal b'chavero, someone who is maragal with his friend or about his friend. Maragal, we said, is from the word maraglim, which is spying, but the pasuk doesn't use that, as it says. So he's over below us. He's trying to progress to the negative commandment. Shnemar, as it says, lo selech rachil benacha. You shall not go as a gossip monger among your people. Okay, and that's the term that we have to define. Rachil. Even though you don't get whiplashes, avun gadol, it's a big iniquity. The gorim laharog nefashos rabos Israel, and it causes many Jewish souls to be killed. That's why it is placed next to lo samad adam re'acha. Don't stand over the blood of your fellow. Say uluman ma'ir l'doek hadomi. Go and learn what happens to doek hadomi. Edehu rachel. Now this is the difficult part. Who is a rachel? Which type of person is a rachel? Zeshu toin devarim. This is someone who takes statements or bears statements. V'holech mizelazeh, and goes from this person to this person. The Omer, and says kach v'kach amar ploni. Such and such was said by so and so. Kach v'kach shamati al ploni. Such and such I heard about so and so. Alpha pishu omer emes harzeh makri v'sta olam. Even though he says the truth, then he destroys the world. So the points that were clear were a Rechilus is not dependent. Rechilus is not dependent on the truth value in the sense that even though it is true, it still is Rechilus. Okay. Number two, it has to be some sort of destructive speech, right? I mean, he includes that in the definition or in where he's presenting it. It's like you could say like about I don't know, about stealing. You could say about lots of averus that have destroyed the world, but he puts it here. He says it's gorim laharog nefashos rabos Israel. And we have this gossip monger analogy. A monger is a merchant, and that's really where we had the most confusion. Hey, that's where we had reviewing. That's where we had the most confusion, which was like why the monger thing, like why the merchant, what's that's getting across. And then the most unclear thing of them all was the two examples he gave. Kach v'kach amar ploni, which makes it sound like you're reporting what you heard from people. And then kach v'kach shamati al ploni, and you're reporting what you heard about people. But the question was, is it specifically that formula of statements, or what if you say kach v'kach asa ploni, like so-and-so did something? Like, is that also Rechilus or is that something else? And then there's the general question of like, he doesn't say anything, he doesn't say that this is bad speech. That's what Lashon Hara is. So how far do you go? Like if you say that, the example we were using yesterday, Isaac Lifter had a wedding. Is that Lashon Hara? I mean, sorry, is that Rechilus? Because what about if I say, I heard about Isaac that he got married, or so-and-so said Isaac got married, So like, how far do you extend this? And then we had some theories about like differentiating between talking about events and then talking about people, or talking about the person saying something as an event, like if you said, it was, let's see, if you said like, I had a good time at the wedding, so then that's just talking about the wedding. But if you said, so-and-so said they had a good time at the wedding, so now the subject of your conversation is the person's statement. So we toyed around with that distinction, but we weren't sure. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Okay. Again, we're going to try not to spend time on this. So I compiled just a few more sources, non-Rambam sources here. Here's 3 for you and then 1 for you. I don't know why I did, but it felt like a circle. Okay. So first place I went to was the pasuk. Okay, because what we were saying. So this is all going off of what Zev was saying. Zev was saying if we were more familiar with the role of a merchant in the time of Tanakh, then maybe that would give us insight, because the pasuk is plain shot is using this analogy that and assuming familiarity with it. Okay, so I have the Rashi in Hebrew, but because we're gonna try to keep this short, we're gonna read it in English, and we're not gonna read the whole thing. Okay. So Rashi says, and this is the English from All Torah, so I don't know how accurate it is. Lo seilch rachil, thou shalt not go as a talebearer. I say that because all those who sow discord between people and all who speak slander go into their friends' houses in order to spy out what evil they can see there or what evil they can hear there, so that they may tell it in the streets. They're called holche rachil, which is the same as holche regila, people who go about spying. And then he says espiment, I don't know how to say French, spying, okay, like espionage, right, in French. So this sounds very different than Rambam. How so? How would you characterize the difference?
There's nothing about the merchant.
Right, nothing about the merchant. Yeah, nothing about the merchant. What about the way he describes the actual activity of Rechilus? Strike two is different.
It's going out of their way to.
Yeah, exactly. Like they are literally like they're prying into other people's business and sneaking to get stuff. We're just doing some non-Rambam sources to try to give us insight into Rambam, which is this. Right. So what Avi was saying is that they're going in specifically like taking information, and that's very different than the Rambam, which sounds like a much more like passing on of information, okay, or passing on of statements. Okay. Skip. Next underlined part. For this reason, I say that the expression holech rachel means going about meragel and spying out. Rachel equals ragel because the chaf may be interchanged with a gimel, since all letters, the pronunciation of which are of the same place in the organs of speech, may interchange with each other. So that's what I said yesterday that the footnote guy said that people might not like, and I said because you pronounce it with the same part of your mouth, and that's exactly what Rashi is saying. Okay, so not to make that a good theory, just to show that the footnote guy is not getting it from nowhere, and I'm not crazy. Okay, Rashi says it. Yeah. All right. Skip. Next underlined part. Similarly, so this is where he does say the monger part. Similarly, the rochel, the trader, is one who goes around and searches for, spies out all kinds of merchandise. Okay, so he is saying the merchant, but he's interpreting it as a form of spying. Right? Think of someone going to like, and I don't know how it worked back then. Think of someone going to like an antique store and like looking for things that like are being sold that the seller doesn't realize are valuable, you know? And so also the seller of perfumes, which women use to make themselves nice. I don't know what the connotation of that is or how that works, because he constantly goes about in the villages. He's called rochel, which has the same meaning as rogel. Okay. So that's just, again, that's Rashi's take. And that the reason why I'm bringing this in is because it is a different take on Rachil that it doesn't sound like the Rambam, but again, we don't know what Rachil meant back then. And the more examples we can get, the better. Okay, next, flip the page. Sefer HaChinuk. Okay, now Sefer HaChinuk also seems to disagree with the Rambam, and I'm only bringing this in for one purpose, which I'll say after we read it. Shelo l'ragel. We are prohibited from Rechilus. Shneimar lo telech rachel. V'ha'inyan hu. So here's where he defines it, and you tell me how this is different than the Rambam. She'im nishma adam medaber ra b'chavero. If a person was heard speaking bad about his friend, shelo nelech elav, then you shouldn't go to him. Unasaper lo ploni medaber kach v'kach, and basically repeat the guy's statement. Say so and so said such and such. So what's the difference between this and the Rambam?
First off, he's saying it's something bad.
Right.
Second, he's saying it's telling the guy who was spoken about.
And also,
repeating it.
Oh, okay, right,
less
good.
malicious. Like before, like the Rashi's going in about how
Yeah, certainly.
spying,
Yeah.
And this and this one's out. It's more like, oh, you heard it.
Right. Certainly, according to, so if you had a maliciousness spectrum, malice spectrum, Rashi is like you're deliberately going out to get harmful information. You have Rambam, who seems to be totally neutral. It doesn't mention anything about Ra. And then you have the Sefer HaChinuk kind of in the middle, saying speaking Ra about someone, not necessarily something secret, but you know. And then, as Isaac pointed out, the example he gives is saying to the guy it was spoken about. So that is significant. Yeah.
I'm not sure that Rashi's saying that being a rachil necessarily is that you're spying, just that it leads to it. Like that's just what they all do. He's describing a phenomenon more than prescribing what artists.
That could be. I guess we would really have to go through thoroughly all of Rashi here, which we did not do. I hear. Let me just go back for 1 second here. Yeah. I guess the question, as you were saying, is whether you define it based on this spying thing or whether that's just a comparison that's used. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say quickly, and it's not 100% clear, but you think maybe you can make the argument. We know that Rambam really abhorred the wasting time. I mean, it's not so clear that because these examples are so neutral that if the problem is that the person is saying things that are bad necessarily, but if the person is like a bit of a yent and just sort of
Right.
wasting their time.
Right. It's interesting. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and again, that's where my big question mark is in the like for example, like the way you use the word yenta now. If Rachel had such a connotation that we have just lost and we're trying to reconstruct it, like for all I know, that could be. And we are going to see an example of that in a second. But the reason why I'm bringing the Sefer HaChinuk in is because of an important thing that is halakhically relevant, which I have not seen in the Rambam, and it's always bothered me that I haven't seen it in the Rambam. So I'm bringing it in because I think it is unanimous. But as we read through the whole parak, I want to see like, am I just missing it? So this next line in the Sefer HaChinuk. So he defined it, and then Elaim kain tihye kavanaso l'salek hanezakin ulahashbis riv. So this description of Rechilus is utter unless the person's intent is to remove harm or to put quarrels to rest. So this is a famous thing of if you're speaking, usually people say it about Lashon Hara, but if you're speaking Lashon Hara and it's for a constructive purpose, then it's not usher. And similarly, in certain cases, I guess, I mean, lahashbis riv would be another constructive purpose, but I guess it's not an active harm. It's disturbance of the peace. Yeah.
I mean, I think you said it's about Lashon Hara, but I think just mentioned Rechilus, the Rambam.
Oh, okay. So that actually reminds me of a source which I did not include. So there is a source in the Yerushalmi, which the Rambam does not paskin like, unless he's doing it in a creative way, that says, Hainu Rechilus, Hainu Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is Rechilus, okay? So it is possible that the Sefer HaChinuk is going based on that. It's just that usually the Sefer HaChinuk does stick pretty close to the Rambam, and if he deviates, he usually quotes someone. Yeah, Avi?
But weren't we saying that Lashon Hara is
right? So that's what I was saying is that yeah. So I was gonna say if you are creative in your the way you're learning the Rambam, but because the Rambam, even though he says it's included, he says it is different and worse. You know, he's gonna go on all today to talk about like how bad it is.
These things as halachic category, like I think you can make an argument that you just see, even maybe Hilchos in general, he just sees it as sort of like I don't know if we could say this for all of it, but he sees it as sort of more advice than like hard halachic categories that are
right. So,
well, he says it's not. He says it's not. Doesn't he say it's not allowed?
Oh, it is allowed. It is. You just don't get makos. Yeah, and he listened to say from mitzvos and the yeah. Right. But the point you're bringing up is fair, which is, and this is a question we kind of touched upon earlier this year when we were doing the Ralbag's approach to midots in Torah and commanding us in emotions. That Ralbag seems to hold that like you need concrete particular actions to be incorporated into the halachic system, and then anything that is like amorphous will be relegated to the realm of midot. It's been a question for a while for me with the Rambam. Does the Rambam hold that there are things that are los ases or ases, but also have these amorphous definitions? You know, I see arguments yes and no. So yeah.
It seems to me at least that like the halakha b'dracha, we talked about the having like midos.
Yeah.
That seems amorphous.
It seems amorphous, but then we did say that like the Rambam felt the need to concretize it as, you know, find actions that are on the middle path and repeat them until they become habit. You know, so like, and we didn't know whether that was just whether he was just prescribing what he saw as the best thing, or whether he holds that the Torah is being mitzvah in that. You know.
Yeah. I guess I'm not sure what you mean by amorphous.
Yeah, and I don't know if I mean a specific thing either. I guess like in the sense of
so using amorphous.
Yeah. To key in amorphousness, whatever that means. But it's I mean like I think you were getting at this of like halachic technicalities, like lending themselves like.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to take too much time away from your main point. I'm just like, I know that a lot of people. There is an argument that until like the Chafetz Chaim, it wasn't really seen as most of these things weren't really seen as like halacha.
Right.
So but that's a whole.
Okay, so I'm actually gonna turn off the recording while I say this next part. So the upshot is the Rambam holds Lashon Hara is aser, meaning it's not just it's not just like a tzatova, but yeah, in case that wasn't clear. Okay, what we're doing fine right now is just tying up some loose ends about the Rambam from non-Rambam sources. So the next thing I want to touch upon is, so just to tie up the loose end of the loose end, I do think it is unanimous that if you're speaking negatively for a constructive purpose, then it's not usher. We should be on the lookout for where that is in the Rambam. And it could just be that in the very concept of holech Rachel is like the implication of destructiveness, as the Rambam spells out, of like it's Mahrigas Olam and it's Gorim Laharag Nefashos, like, so it could be that he's just assuming that and doesn't need to say it. I don't know. Okay, next, Ralbag. So the reason I'm bringing the Ralbag, I'll tell you now, so when we read it, we'll have it in mind, is Rambam said that Lashon Hara is Bichlal Rechilus, and there was some confusion yesterday as to what that meant. Ralbag says it in a way that, whether or not it's what the Rambam means, it's a good explanation. Okay. Lo Selach Rachel B'Mecha. Inyan HaRechilus Hu Sheyisaper Adam Dvarim Me'ish Echad Le'ish Acher. So Rechilus is when one person speaks words from one man to another, presumably that's like words from one person and then relays it to another. So there's three parties involved. Alpha Pi Shem Divrei Emes, even though they're true. Okay, but Ofen Shetuchal Lihischadish Bazeh Sina V'Tachrus Beinehem, in a manner that is able to incite hatred or competition between them. Okay, so in other words, it's not negative, but it has this negative result of like starting up quarrels or something. This results in a loss to or harm to society, in an unbelievable way. Now this is the part that I liked. I mean, that part was good too. So it's also clear from here that it is proper to refrain from speaking in a degrading manner about one's fellow. If the Torah prohibits saying things which make the aroma of a person sour or rot, which is a great description of what you do when you speak Rechilus. Like the example that I thought of immediately with this is like in elementary school. Oh, that's the weird kid. You say something ambiguous and that it just like creates this aura around the person that they don't even know, like, can you like say what's weird? Like, oh no, they're just weird. It's like there's an aroma or odor, So if the Torah prohibits you from saying things that give a bad odor to a person in the, I shouldn't say eyes, it really should be in the nostrils of one person or specific people, all the more so if you're spoiling the odor of someone in the eyes of all people. So I thought that was a really good way to show how Lashon Hara is in Rechilus. Rechilus is going to cause people to look unfavorably upon someone else, whether through competition or jealousy or whatever. And Lashon Hara is just dialing that up to the point where it is an extreme way or to more people. Okay, so it's like a quantitative difference the way he's saying it almost, even though halachically it's going to be measured in a qualitative thing, whether you're speaking ill or not. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Next point. We have two more points. The Torah Shlema. So this is also going off of Zev's. Yeah.
Is there any way that we could read the Ralbag into the Rambam?
When we reread the Rambam today, we'll see.
Yeah, because I feel like this structure, at least, worked nicely with the way they're
on. I agree. Yeah. We'll save it for when we do Lashon Hara today. Sorry, I made that joke enough. All right. All right. So this is going off of Zev's intuition that if we understood what merchants did, then we would understand this Isser. So the Torah Shlema, who I always forget who it is. It's the guy in there in the set. I always forget who it is though. Pirush Sharochel Hamachazer Yaros Imine Takshitin. So the merchant that goes around in cities with types of jewelry. Molith Hiduchin Me'ir Le'ir. He brings news from city to city. Okay, who knew? Kida Amrinan Mi Mahaduri Mili Shehu Mesapir Be'ir Hazom Mashara Ba'cheres. He says in this city what he saw in another city. V'chena Mesapir Be'ir Acheres Mashara Bezo. Also says in this city what he saw in the other city. L'fikach Dome HaRechilus LeRochel Ki HaMolech Rechilus Magid Lezeh Mashashama Mizeh. And Rav Hirsch, who I included in the Hebrew on the source sheet because I don't have an English one at home, but since Rav Hirsch didn't write in Hebrew or English, let's just read the English. He says here, similarly, a rocha is a peddler who goes from house to house, bringing everyone the wares he needs. So we find in Shiur 3:6 and Nehemiah 13:20. By extension, a rocha in international trade is a middleman who imports and exports merchandise from country to country. So we find in Yechezkel 27 and 28. But now he says the same point that the Torah Shlema says. And by further extension, a rachil is a news peddler. Okay, who goes from person to person and from house to house, prying into the affairs of one person and telling them to the other. All right. Of such a talebearer, Scripture says, "Lo selach rachel b'macha." Do not reveal things about your fellow man that are not known, unless you are certain that he would like you to do so. Which is an interesting way to measure it. Thus, in Mishlei 11, 13, and 20, 19, Holech Raphael is amplified by Megale Sod and Golech Sod, one who reveals secrets. So that's almost a mix of Rashi and like and the peddler of the Rambam, So again, who knew? I did not know this, but it makes sense. Rambam was always talking about how merchants are the ones who have to travel a lot, and people typically didn't leave their cities. So how do you get news from one city to the other? You rely on the merchants, and since people rely on the merchants will pick up advice, or not pick up advice, pick up pieces of of gossip or news, and probably it makes them better merchants, because if you go to the merchant who's good at collecting info, he's going to get more business. You're not just going to go to him and ask for your news and then go on your way. You're going to buy some of the stuff, So I thought that was an interesting connotation here.
It's definitely interesting to see the different kind of peddler here. This is why when I read peddler, this is what I was expecting, and then we read the Rashi's opinion on what peddler would be, and it's very different.
Right. But again, the one overlap between Rashi and Repersh is that trying to be fair to one person and telling them to another, and I don't even think that's essential. Meraglim makes it into an essential thing, that's what the spy's job is. This seems more like an idea, really this guy is a merchant and a news peddler, but in order to do that in a maximal fashion, he's going to sneak and try to find stuff when he can, Yeah. Okay, last old point here, which is, I actually did what the Rambam said and went and read the Doeg HaDomi thing, okay, which we really should have done yesterday. So look at what Doeg HaDomi actually says, okay? So this is without even going into the whole story, which we recounted yesterday. Vayan Doeg HaDomi v'hu nitzav al avdei Shaul v'yomar. So this is what he said. Ra'iti is saying this to Shaul. Ra'iti et ben Yishai ba Noveh. I saw the son of Yishai come to Nov, okay, El Achimelech ben Achituv, to Achimelech, the son of Achituv. Vayishal lo b'Hashem, and he inquired of Hashem. V'tzeda nasan lo, and he gave him provisions, okay. The es pair of Goliath Haplishti nasan lo, he gave him the sword of Goliath Haplishti, okay. So does that or does that not fit into what the Rambam was saying?
Yeah,
in your opinion?
Because he's saying, well, the cases that we have, he didn't say
yeah,
this is what the person said. Right.
So it doesn't fit into the formulas. There's no kach v'kach amar ploni. And at first I thought, he's saying it to Hashem, but no, that's describing an action. And there's no kach v'kach shamati al ploni, right?
He's saying he saw it directly.
He saw it directly. Yeah.
Well, I think what we could deduce from this is that when he said those two cases, those were stereotypical examples, but not like.
Correct. Right. Like we theorized yesterday that those aren't. It's not like everything has to fit into that. And then I saw this footnote in the Living Nach, which is the translation I was using, and I'm relying on the summary here because I didn't have time to check this out beforehand. He inquired of God. The description of David's visit did not include this detail. Okay. So in other words, in the Psukim, when it describes what David did, then it doesn't say that. So the only place we know of it is here. So it says, most commentators consider it slander on Doeg's part, since only a king could inquire of the Urim Bitumim. Doeg was implying that Achimelech had abetted an act of usurpation. Okay, so it complicates it a little bit, because if it really is false, then that does seem to be a Motzi Shemra instead of Rechilus. But it does fit into what the Ralbag was saying, which is that he's saying this in order to get Shaul to notice that, David's trying to take your, driving in the point that David's trying to take your kingship. So I thought that was interesting. And then I guess this last point is this just the Ketef Mishnah on the Rambam, which I thought would be the responsible thing to do. Das Rabbeinu Sharachil Hainu Omer, and this is hard though. Das Rabbeinu Sharachil Hainu Omer Ploni Amar Allah Kach V'Kach O Afsei Lacha Kach. Okay, so that's first of all not what the Rambam said, right? But there's no lacha in the Rambam or alecha, right? But whatever. Alpha Pisha Oso Davar Eno Gnus Lamisha Amar. Just like in the case of Doeg, where he slandered Achimelech, who gave him bread and he informed on Achimelech, who gave him bread and the sword of Goliath to David. If it were asked of Achimelech, he wouldn't deny it. Because it's not a degradation to him. It would seem like he's doing a avoda for Shaul. Kamoshi, he's not to the verb, like he explains in his words. But even though there's no degradation, since he's taking statements from this guy and going to this guy, he's called a Rachil because Shemo Hainhu, that he is like his name, like a merchant who goes around in cities. So the possibility I had here, which I'm not saying I'm getting from the Kesef Mishnah, just something I was thinking, is all statements have context. Okay, just putting on my AP English teacher hat for 1 second, that there's the rhetorical triangle, which is the relationship between the content, the speaker, and the listener. And meaning comes from the interaction between those three. So one of the things that in a normal conversation or in a responsible conversation, you factor that into account when you're speaking. But what the Rachil does, like we said yesterday, is he indiscriminately will take information out of its context and then use it for profit of some sort, use it for some sort of gain, whether it's entertainment, social cred, something like that, So I was thinking that might also be the essence of Rechilus, is just the indiscriminate sharing of information that, because it's out of context, can cause harm, even though there's no degradation in the statement. Yeah.
Interesting assumption you have that it's based on the Rachel gets benefit out of it. I don't know necessarily always it's necessarily per se a benefit they can get out of it. I mean, unless you want to talk about maybe to some extent like a psychic one where it's like emotional, I guess, like emotional kind of thing out of it. But otherwise, I don't think there's really always a benefit.
Yeah, that's what I meant by the benefit of, like, either we said yesterday, like for entertainment, or because it helps his actual his practical affairs, something like that, popularity. Yeah.
Yes, I'm a little confused now because I thought that we were saying even according to the Rambam, like it has to be destructive, and now we're saying it's not destructive.
So I think you could still say that this is what the Rambam means as a possibility, because the fact that it's that was the example I was trying to say with, like, going into a crowd waving knives around,
right.
Like it's not guaranteed that you're going to stab someone, but you're engaged in a destructive activity. So the waving statements around about other people, not in context, to other people who will take it who might take it in a bad way, it's a destructive activity, even though it doesn't always result in destruction.
Right, and so then the only time it'd be okay is when you go into it with positive intent, meaning
for a specific constructive purpose or to remove a harm.
So like neutral to negative is all the same category, so to speak. Being like you can't even really say that going into a crowd, waving at is like neutral, but like let's just say,
well, it's neutral compared to going to a crowd to stab someone.
Right, exactly.
Right,
exactly.
Yeah.
So like relative to that, it's neutral, but that would be in the same category of that's still relative.
Yeah.
If they're going with positive intent, then it's not that.
Right, and just I think this also clarifies the Lashon Hara Rechilus relationship of the Rechilus is a ban on potentially hazardous speech of this nature, of like the indiscriminate sharing of information about people. So like the Ralbag said, like, call the chomer if you're going out of your way to speak something which is negative about someone, Yeah.
What I wanted from Richard Mitchell, for any good to come out of it is just like the happiest accident. For any harm to come out of it, requires no accidents at all.
That's a great way to say it. Yeah, that's a great way to say it. And then the last thing, which we're not even going to go into in text, remember we saw that in the Rambam's Sefer Mitzvos, the first interpretation he gave of Rachil was not merchant, it was Rach Lezeh V'Kasha Lezeh. Apparently that has to do with a drasha for Dayanim, which according to principles of drasha, everyone who I read who quoted that said, based on principles of drasha, like it had to be mentioned. I don't know what it is, but if you look into it, it doesn't seem to be as important as we thought it might have been. So I didn't want to spend time on that. Okay, so Lashon Hara now. Okay, so we'll just read what we read yesterday and then move on. In Bays 2, Yesh Avam Gadol Mizeh Ad Ma'od, there is a iniquity that is much greater than this. V'hu Bichlal Lav Zeh, it's included in this. Yeah.
So I just want to summarize what we're saying about Phyllis.
Yeah.
Phyllis is indiscriminate sharing information removed from its context.
Yeah, I'm most comfortable with that definition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And it fits in best with this, with the Ralbag.
Yeah, and that also explains what he didn't need to mention. If you're thinking about it, because then you're
right. And I do think in terms of what we said about the merchant yesterday is also a good merchant the merchant interpretation that we read in Refresh is also good, that he's just going like it was a news peddler, and it's a news peddler who's like not invested at all in the people whose news he's sharing or he's sharing it to, right? Like he just doesn't care about that. But what we said yesterday is what the merchant's main goal is just to move merchandise,
he's invested insofar as it helps them move his mercy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that still fits in also.
Right.
Yeah.
Who made these divisions here?
The Rambam.
No, I'm saying the from base 1 to base 2.
The Rambam.
Rambam,
Rambam made those divisions, and then this is another thing with the bad versions of the Rambam, the bad standard versions of the Rambam. The editors just made their own divisions and combined them. So they have base 1 and 2 because in the standard editions it's all one paragraph. You know, but the Rambam made it 2 paragraphs.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 And like the headings are from.
The headings are from the
Yeah,
publisher.
yeah.
Yeah. But the divisions are the Rambams. Yeah. All right. Yesh avan gadol. We read that. V'hu bichlal lavzeh, and it's included in this losa. Say v'hu lashon hara. This is lashon hara. V'hu hamasaper bekius chavurah. This is one who speaks disparagingly of his friend. Alva pish amar emes, even though he's speaking the truth. Aval omer sheker, one who says falsehood. Moti shemra al chavero nikra. He's called a one who spreads forth a bad name over his friend. Yeah.
So the distinction between, so it seems to me that the distinction between lashon hara and Rechilus is indiscriminate. Lashon hara is with bad intent.
Right.
So that's not indiscriminate. That's calculated to bring about harm.
Correct. And I would add to that, lashon hara is true statements with bad intent, and moti shemra is false statements with bad intent. Yeah.
We could also have Rechilus statements with bad intent.
That would be lashon hara.
Yeah, can we not say intent, because I think it's not intent, it's the content.
Right.
With that, it's bekius.
Something that's meant to.
Yeah.
If you speak lashon hara with good intent, if you speak degradation with good intent, like
you're right.
if it's constructive intent, then it's not lashon hara. But if it's good, like I'm trying to think of an example of this. Like
if somebody's just saying mindless gossip, it seems to fit more into under Rambam's like categories here. It seems to fit more into Rechilus than it would lashon hara.
Right, mindless gossip. Yeah.
So I guess indiscriminate sharing of non-charged information is Rechilus.
Yeah. Let me just give an example of this. Is like maybe this will fit. I mean, if you get my intuition, then help me with this. I think it's it's a really bad thing that parents will say degrading things about their own kids under the heading of like, I don't even think they're consciously thinking of it, like it's my kid, you know, like they'll talk about like stuff that the kid did, even when the kid is like past bar mitzvah, when like they're in their teenage years, you know, but that like it's a person that you're speaking about. Now their intent is not to cause harm, and they might even have a good intent in the sense of like, I mean, I don't know, I'm just differentiating between good intent and like, it's defined by bekius, by the degradation, and good intent can remove it from the itzer, but what defines it as lashon hara is the bekius.
The question is about the content, not the.
Yeah, right. Okay, aval bal lashon hara, but a master lashon hara, expert level. Zesh yoshiv v'omer kach v'kach asaponi. This is a person who sits, and we jokingly said sitting yesterday with like you have to be physically sitting down. But what would you? Okay, we'll read it, and you'll tell me what you think sitting means. He says such and such Ploni did. So and so did such and such. V'kach v'kach hayu avotav. This is what his parents were like. I heard such and such about him. The Omer Devarim Tel Ganai, and he says degrading things. Alzeh HaKatav Omer. That's what the pasuk is talking about when it says Yachrit Hashem Kol Sifsei Halakos Lashon Medaber Kadolos. May Hashem cut off all lips that are smooth talking, tongue that speaks great things. Yeah. So what is this Baal Lashon Hara character?
Well, just on the sitting thing. Quickly, I feel like it's just to stress the point that like this is like who he is. Like he sits in this, and like people come to him when they want to. He just sits in his Lashon Hara chair.
Yeah. right. So I actually have I could divide that into 2 interpretations. Okay. One is it's a Lashon Hara addict, someone who is always doing it. We all speak Lashon Hara probably, you know, like from time to time, you know, as much as we'd like not to. But this is a person who like this is his profession. Okay, or it could be like you're saying this is his social role, like he is taking that role in his social group, you know. One in Mishle calls this the late, you know, the late, and late is also called by Chazal. Leitim are called Yoshvei Kranos. They sit on corners, you know, like they just all they do is they sit there and they just like you know, like speak degradingly about people. Yeah. And by the way, this is a guy who has no chelik in Olam Haba, according to Hilchos Tshuva Gimel. Yeah. Okay. So we're not going to delve into this Tehillim because we would have to learn the parak, so we're just going to skip that. Okay. Now we get to the famous Memra, right? Amru Chachamim al shalosh averos. Did I bring my book I wanted to bring? We'll see. Amru Chachamim al shalosh averos nifrayin min ha'olam ba'olam hazeh v'in lo chelik l'olam haba. Avodah Zara, Vigilui Arayos, Ushvichos Damim. So Chazal said there are 3 averos, and really it's categories of averos. It's not single avero that a person is punished in Olam Hazeh, and he has no portion in Olam Haba, and that's idolatry, prohibited sexual relations that are chayav kares and parshas acharemos, and shfichus damim, okay, and bloodshed. But Lashon hara keneged kulam, and Lashon hara is equal to all of them. Yeah.
So just about your side point.
Well, kedotim is the what do you call is the onchin or the paros, which one of this.
Okay, yeah.
I think
but my question was, are there ones that you're chayav kares on, but are not under this category?
I will tell you.
One not under what category?
Arayos. It's a side point, but because it's about Arayos, then we should probably clarify it, right? It's in. So I think this is either in the beginning. You would think it's in Easter Bia, and I think it is.
No, it's going to be he like lists them.
Right, but I think he says
they're all side first, then they're occupied.
Right. No. I know. But there are you get kares also, right? I mean, it's not dabka chayav kares. I'm saying like all the misos are chayav kares until you until you putter from it. Yeah. If I can't find it immediately, then we'll come back to it at the end. Probably said somewhere explicitly shiva parshas acharemos. That's why I said that.
Okay.
But I could be maybe it is in the beginning. No. All right, I'll have to find it. Yeah. Okay. Remind me afterwards. We'll just look it up. While I'm standing, did I bring the book I wanted to bring? Nope, I didn't. Oh, I brought another book I wanted to bring. I was going to say, is anyone going to Isaac's Shabbat brachos? I know one person. Yeah, okay, well, could someone give this to Aaron Friedman?
Sure.
Okay, you know who Aaron Friedman is?
Yeah, Shabbat tonight.
Tonight, yeah.
Oh, I'm not.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
I'm going.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I should be more specific because there are 7 of them. Yeah. Okay. So what do we make of this? This is a famous one, right? That why do you lose your chelik in Olam Haba for it? And again, it's if you actually read the Rambam in Tshuva, he says it's a bal Lashon hara, So here he does seem to imply that Lashon hara itself you lose your chelik in Olam Haba for. And then can we understand what is the similarity? In what sense is Lashon hara keneged avodah zara gilui rash shfichus damim? Yeah.
So for the second part, I'm not 100% sure, but
yeah.
The first part seems to fit well with the theology because he doesn't seem to think that losing Olam Haba is necessarily punishment. He just seems to think that if you could either like gain Olam Haba or you just like if you're not able to understand Olam Haba, seemingly even if like you're a good person and you have good intentions,
right?
You just die. There's nothing.
Right.
So that works well with somebody who just sits and is just a fool and whatever.
Right.
And you could, I'm saying from Rambam's perspective,
yeah,
it works well with his theology.
Right.
But then what you're saying for the second question of why he deliberately seems to compare it to things that are clearly negative, what's the term?
Extremely bad. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I don't know.
I just want to comment on one point on what you're saying. I might as well just read this Hilchos Tshuva thing really quickly, just so we can actually hear it. That Bali Lashon hara. I might have a support for you. I think you just listen. Hold on. Bali Lashon hara. Okay, so he doesn't explain it then. Okay, never mind. But you can. I see what you're saying. You're saying like the type of person who is a bal Lashon hara is not going to be one who is living a life that gets you Olam Haba through your life.
In his vision of how you get and how Olam Haba works, where it's only
natural result of your knowledge. Yeah, I hear.
If Rechilus is gorem laharog nefesh with rabbos mitro, and that's not necessarily degrading, but Lashon hara is avon gadol niteh necessarily degrading. I can see how you get from gorem laharog to necessarily shfichus damim from there.
So you're saying shvichus damim like could be a literal result.
Right. As in Lashon Hara, it's necessarily destructive.
Right.
Is you're intending to malign somebody.
You're intending to do what would be gorem laharog, so you're intentionally bringing about laharog.
So that works out well for shvichus damim. But not taking that approach for the other ones would be harder. Yeah.
I have one for what it's starting.
Okay.
I think when things are compared to avodah zarah, it's that you're taking something and like making it like treating it like this is like the ultimate reality.
Yeah. Right.
And so I don't exactly know how Lashon Hara is doing that.
Yeah.
But I would say it's probably something like this.
Okay, I hear. I have a different one for avodah zarah. Yeah.
I was gonna say about this statement, about approaching this statement, that it can be literal that Lashon Hara is like equal to all of them, because then it would be 4 things.
Right. Yeah. There's lots of reasons I think why we can't say Lashon Hara is literally equal to all of them, but I've heard people say the statement that you have to give up your life rather than speak Lashon Hara. The answer is no, and they quote this to support it. I'm like, no,
it could be. This is a different sort of reading.
Yeah.
But it could be he's trying to do that, like because you would think that it's something that's so slight, it's not such a big deal.
Yeah.
But that's why the Gemara uses these hyperbolic statements.
Yeah.
I mean, not just obviously this isn't a Gemara, but the Gemara also uses hyperbolic statements like this for embarrassing somebody, or not living in Israel, all these sorts of things, and it gives statements that aren't necessarily halachic, but like, this is the
So in fact, that's why I went to the. I keep on closing. You should never close a Mishnah Torah. But that's why I went to Hilchos Tshuva, because in Hilchos Tshuva, the Rambam lists the 24 people who actually lose their chayil olam haba, and then afterwards he says, "V'yesh averos kalut me'elu." There are averos which are lighter than these. The afal pichein, and even though they're lighter, amru chachamim, the sages said, shaharagil behen ein lahem lo chayil olam haba, that someone who's accustomed to them doesn't have a chayil olam haba. And they said this in order to distance people from them and to warn about them. So, like for rhetorical purposes, they exaggerated how extreme it is. Oh, sorry. I appreciate you trying to warn me. They exaggerated how extreme it is in order to get people to be distant from them. And I guess that's my question here.
Where is that again?
In Tshuva.
Sorry.
No, it's my fault. I think it's Gimel Daled. I have to type this in the show notes anyway, so Gimel Daled. I'll just make sure right now. Gimel. No, it's not Gimel Yud Daled. I knew there's Daled in there somewhere. Yeah.
This is the topic we mentioned about embarrassment.
Yeah.
I think Hilchos actually brings down the halacha that like you have to give up your life
for embarrassment. Yeah,
I specifically embarrassed.
Yeah, right.
But not like this thing. And like
Rambam definitely doesn't hold that.
Yeah, also I think the Gemara talks about it might be slightly different.
Interesting. So going back to the statement though, this is a question we should have started with in general. When they say something like this, that Lashon Hara is connected all 3 of these things, there are different ways to approach the whole statement. So one is they're just saying it rhetorically. Another way is to say they're teaching an idea about Lashon Hara and its similarity to these 3 things. Another one is it's about the consequences. I was inclined towards an approach like yours, and I did not rethink this since the last time I taught this, which I don't remember when it was. So people just shoot down this idea if it's bad, because it was a while ago that I came up with this. I was taking the approach that Lashon Hara has a similarity to avodah zarah, to gilui arayos, and to shvichus damim. Okay, so shvichus damim we said yesterday. Okay, which was that speech doesn't affect people. Speech affects the idea of the person in other people's minds. And in fact, what do they call it when you slander someone in real, character assassination. They actually use the word assassination. So you are killing, and it is like an assassination in the sense that unfortunately, negative information can stick with the person their entire life, So it partakes of permanency in that sense, So it is, and it's destructive, and so that's the whole shvichus damim thing. You're killing this person socially. Okay, that one I think is fine. Gilui arayos, the thing we also said yesterday. Now I'm using gilui arayos in a very, very broad sense. We said yesterday that when a person speaks Lashon Hara, they're taking another human being who is as deserving of chesed, tzedakah, and mishpat as you are, and they're treating them as an object for their own gratification, right? So it is similar to like a sexual act in that sense, to a negative, sexual act in that sense, where obviously arayos have many different reasons for them, but the Torah prohibits us from engaging in them for, like, in all the cases, you have to override your desire to just relate to this as an object of pleasure for some higher purpose, whether it's social, philosophical, something like that. So it's like gilui arayos in that sense, okay? And then avodah zarah, the way I was going to take it is the best definition of avodah zarah I've heard is Rabbi Chait's definition, where he said, you are relating to the products of your psyche as a reality, okay? And with Lashon Hara, one of the things that it needs to be in order to be Lashon Hara is true. So you're taking something true, but you're putting a negative slant on it, and coming from your own issues, right? That's kol posel b'muhu posel. Anyone who invalidates someone else, it's really just projection. They're really like doing because of their own insecurities, their own flaws. So you are basically taking your own psyche, and instead of like dealing with it in a healthy way and like dealing with it, you are like projecting it outwards by bad mouthing another person. So it partakes of avodah zarah in that sense, where you're taking your own internal issues and then projecting them outwards and treating them as a reality.
Yeah, avodah zarah made sense, and some. I don't think I fully understood how you're connecting it to the
So let's take, for example, adultery, okay? Because that's one that's easy to, you don't have to go into chukim for adultery, right? So adultery, this guy is married to this woman, and they're married. But if you commit adultery with her, you're basically just, ignoring the social reality of the marriage, you're ignoring the justice element of the marriage, you're ignoring the kedusha element of the marriage, you're just relating to this person as an object for your own pleasure. When you speak Lashon Hara about someone, you're also just converting them in. Why do people speak Lashon Hara? Because it's fun. Because you get advantage out of it. You get, popularity, you get social cred. You're relating to them as just an object of your own pleasure, totally like neglecting the philosophical reality of their existence, Yeah. I also had another idea, which I feel like maybe we said earlier, that something you said, with the Olam Haba thing. Okay, this is a stretch. Okay, I don't buy this. I think it's a good idea on its own right, but I right now I'm not feeling like this is what the Rambam means. Why does a Baal Lashon Hara lose their credit in Olam Haba? Okay, so in order, the part of you that goes to Olam Haba is like the Tel Elohim. That's what makes us go to Olam Haba. Okay. I don't even want to say this. I'll say it. To be a type of person who habitually speaks Lashon Hara about other people is going to stem from a lack in a recognition of Tzelem Elohim. Because if you actually recognize what a Tzelem Elohim is, you wouldn't do that to other people.
Right.
The thing that makes me doubt it is I don't know if that would actually like corrupt your Tzelem Elohim, and I'd have to explore that. But I just want to throw that out there for posterity. Yeah. Yes, I did. Thank you. Wait, did I? Hold on. I did. I think I did. The red light is going on. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm glad you said it.
Yeah.
I wasn't reacting to you. I was. Yeah. That's always the danger. Okay.
Oh yeah, I had said I was gonna say it on.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. You know what's amazing? That we've only lost in the hundreds plus. We only lost one recording. It was in the minyan and mitzvos one day that it just didn't record or something like that. Yeah. I think it was because we were downstairs and like something about the Wi-Fi. I don't know what it was. Yeah. Anyway, so okay. Next, we're ready to go on. But Amru Chachamim also said, yikes. We've only seen that once, right? That was if you get gaiva, I thought anger is avodah zarah and gaiva is kafar be'ikr, and that was not so. Okay, so gaiva is kol hamisgat. Let me read it in the Rambam that I didn't close.
Surely this must be rhetorical.
I can.
There is, he says we have to kill them. So.
No, right? Yeah. Imagine, killed all the people spoke Lashon. Well, rhetorical or idea based. I mean, like it's not halakhic. It's not literal. Yeah. Yes, that's what I was looking at, because by Gaiva he says it is kafar be'ikr, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kol shekol hamagbia libo kafar be'ikr, and this is ilu kafar be'ikr. So it's as if he denied the Iker, denied God. Shnemar, as it says in the same parak of Tehillim, which is about Lashon Hara, Asher Amru, that they say, Lil Shonenu Nagbir, with our tongues we shall prevail. So Fasenu Itana, our lips are with us, Mi Adon Lanu, who is the Lord over us. V'od Amru Chachamim, and the Chachamim also said, actually, let's stop there and just analyze that statement. So in what sense are you being kofar be'ikr? And I think the pasuk is important.
Because you're saying, my speech is the ultimate power.
Interesting. Okay, I hear that. You could definitely say,
Well, I'm gonna get from the pasuk.
Yeah, the pasuk, the mi adon lanu, I think is slightly different. And I mean, you could say that adon means a powerful being, but yeah, what were you thinking?
Oh, I'm not from the pasuk, but it's from the pasuk.
Mm-hmm.
And it has you can do it one time. Denying the son with him other people.
Oh, that's interesting. Also, it's not someone looking at other people.
I was thinking that.
Denying that God is all in the law, you just only care about him.
Right. Yeah. So this is another question, by the way, of in giving answers like this, how specific do we have to be to this isser? You know, and you think you have to be specific because we don't say kafir beker for all averos, you know, and like I feel like we give a lot of answers that like, well, what about this? What about this? You know, that's not an objection. It's just like I'm going to be subject to the same objection when I give my idea. Yeah.
So I'm thinking along the lines, kind of like of a mix of the two of them almost.
Yeah.
It was in terms of like the fact that like you kind of put yourself above these other people who you've now gone and created this like, I guess like this drama between, because you've gone and you've spread this gossip, and the big part of it was that like it was supposed to come strike, and now you've gone and done this, almost bring yourself above it because now you're looking down at them as they fight in front of you.
Interesting. I hear that also, and maybe that's making me warm up more to Isaac's idea. Let me say my idea, and then I'll have everything on the table, and then we'll see if we could compile it. Is or not that compile is the wrong word. There is a feeling that God has no right to dictate my speech, you know, and that combined with the power makes you feel like, in other words, my speech is not under God's jurisdiction, like, you know, and I know people can feel like that about a lot of things, but speech and thoughts are, I think, are the two areas where like you feel like this is my domain, you know, and I think in the pasuk you have both those elements. Is what you said was really reflected in the first part, Lil Shonenu Nagbir, we will prevail with our tongues, and then Mi Adon Lanu is the no one can tell us no, you know, no one can tell us not to.
What do you mean by thoughts? So I thought thoughts is only thoughts about what is are thoughts that are.
Well, I'll put it this way: machshavos, like plans.
Okay.
You know, yeah. Because it's right. You don't have iyun prohibiting thoughts. You know, yeah. Right. So if we get more insight into this, we'll think about it. I think this one requires more thought. Then another famous one. I don't know if these are famous because of the Rambam, because he was also like, there were not a ton of compilation. Was there any compilation of the statements of Lashon Hara before the Rambam, like in one place? I don't know. I think not. But like, yeah. The Rift certainly doesn't have, I don't think the Rift put everything in one place for this. All right. V'od amru chachamim shlosha Lashon Hara horeges ha'omro v'hamakablo v'zeh she'omrim alav. So Lashon Hara kills 3 people. The speaker, the recipient, the person who who accepts it, and then the person who it's said about. V'hamakablo yaser min ha'omro, and the one who accepts it more than the one who says it. So the one who it's said about, we already covered, and I don't think we need a new idea for that. Like that part's clear. Omro, I feel like we also like have some intuition about. Say again.
It's for the owner, I mean, this is more
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. And it's the whole way you relate to other people is messed up. You know, the way you relate to your own self in relation to other people. Yeah.
I mean, at least because obviously then the question is going to be the listener. Like, how is it the listener? Is the last one there?
Right.
I think,
and by the way, just to be clear, it's the makabel, not the listener. Meaning sometimes you can't help if someone just shouts Lashon Hara, if you believe the Lashon Hara.
the reactor.
It's if you believe the Lashon Hara, right?
Okay, in terms of like the believer, I think it's in terms of the fact that like, because back to the way things be defining Lashon Hara and Rechilus, it requires this specific reaction in believing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the moment that's kind of like, quote unquote, like the death of that person.
Yeah.
It's that moment of them getting this kind of level of anger and hatred that like you're not supposed to react like that. Like you can't control what that person said to you, but you can control how you react.
Right. So that's the interesting thing, because I was thinking, I don't know if I'm thinking the opposite or the same, but I'm just going to express the way I'm thinking. I'll call you afterwards. Is the most unfortunate one? Well, I'm not going to compare. If I speak Lashon Hara to you, it's my decision. Okay, like I'm deciding to do that. You kind of get assaulted by my Lashon Hara, and because it's very hard to not accept the Lashon Hara when you hear it, especially depending on who you hear it from or what it is, like you can't. And I'm sure we've all had this experience. You just can't get it out of your head, And there are strategies of like, realizing that like that people have, only partial information, and I hope we've all had examples of where like you are absolutely convinced of one thing and you find out one fact that you were missing before that changes your whole evaluation of those, or you realize just how much people's bias can cause them to twist things, but you as the recipient, like it's just you just get this idea put into your head, and it's hard to get out of that. I don't know if it's the same or opposite of what you were saying.
Kind of the opposite.
Okay.
I hear more with your actually. The more I hear yours more than I hear mine.
Fine.
Well,
Yeah, you're right. We're not unifying it. Yeah. It's a good question.
I'm not exactly clear what the harm to the recipient is. Because I mean, I could say, I understand saying it's not a good thing for you to do, and that's going to have consequences. But I wouldn't say, but I'm not sure how it's killing the listener.
Well, it's killing the recipient because you're forcing him to accept something that is distorted, a distortion of the truth, and like that is in his like if you want to go by Marcus Aurelius criteria, right? Is then the only thing that can harm you, the only way someone can harm you is if they make you worse, right? And the thing is that since the you is the thinking, truth-seeking part of you, then like if I'm really ultimately it is in your control, but I'm saying like they are planting false ideas in your mind,
That's what the stumbling blocks are in the blind person.
Yeah.
Harming you. That idea is still stating that like even when somebody plants a false idea in your mind,
Yeah.
that doesn't equate to them harming because you still retain
Right,
the
yeah,
ability to distinguish your own.
Right. Ultimately, right.
If it's true or not.
Yeah, ultimately it is. So maybe, okay, then let's go one step further. A makablo is not the passive listener.
Right.
It's the person who accepts it.
Exactly.
If you've chosen to accept it.
Right. Then you're choosing the bad.
Yeah.
Then you're cultivating.
Then you're cultivating it, right. And that is so now you can flip it on its head and say that the person who speaks Lashon Hara, that's a bad decision. But if you have it in your head and you like either bypass the decision-making process altogether, or if you decide I'm going to accept this even though I know it's Lashon Hara, that's like a worse decision or a worse imperfection.
Because that's forfeiting, like you make that choice to do that, and that's you forfeiting your ability to choose the good.
Right. Yeah.
I think the speaker is not, like, he doesn't necessarily believe it even.
Right. That's also true. Right.
Like, either he already believes it or doesn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And then his speaking it is not really affecting his beliefs.
Right. Yeah, I hear it. But this categorically, to be a makabel, you have to be someone who's choosing to believe it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying
As I guess what we're saying right now is
and then
say it again.
It seems like that act of and I just like that. I can say you can often communicate.
Right.
And now it's in the same problem.
Well, the thing is that if I believe something false about someone else, then that is separate to the action of Lashon Hara. Like if I
and you say the action of
so if I say what I believe, that's the Lashon Hara, right? Is my saying it? It's not my believing this Lashon Hara. My saying it, people have different false views about about other people, but my expressing it is a negative action, which is like Lashon Hara, but that's not affecting what I believe because I already believe that.
I'm asking.
It's not
I don't get it. My hunting is that, Right, but as you quote it, you know, saying, like, on the Halo, within the action of being Halo and believing it is more than saying it, because now you actually believe it and happens on you, right? But you can use the AI thing and also has its own you. And if we're saying that it's not a myself, it's fine, you can also use it. I would have.
It's your decision to believe it. That's the thing.
Well, I just want to imagine it. Meaning that God's name of the Father also means the house. It's not like
Yeah.
we're defining it.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that conceptually the distinction you're making is you don't have to be Makabel in order to speak the Lashon Hara, but I also bothered by it.
I'm saying even if you already believe it, like even though let's say I believe the thing I'm saying,
Yeah.
then my believing it is separate from the action of choosing to speak.
Right, and then you're worse off as a Makabel. You're a Makabel and a Masaper, like like so.
That is worse.
Yeah.
Being like if I'm in a state where I'm believing this and I'm saying it, that is worse than just being in a state where you're but it's there's an action going on here.
Right.
Like different people have different false beliefs about people, and that's and that's a bad state to be in. We're amicable about these false things.
Yeah.
But this is an additional element, which is we're I'm doing an action of speaking, and that speaking is really bad because I'm promoting, like I'm expressing this this bad this false thing, or even this true thing, but this sort of view of a person, and then you're accepting it, which is you're changing the way that you view the person.
So what the part of what's worse about it is that I now have a distorted view.
Yeah.
Is that you're choosing to accept a distorted view?
You're choosing to distort your view.
Yeah. All right, let's stop here for today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss a little bit more about what